our today's conference. The President has just arrived to the room to start this session. Ask the President. We will leave you with this session. His Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the President of the Republic. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate, Your Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, ladies and gentlemen, dear attendees, we would like to welcome you once more to the Youth 8th National Conference. This conference that has become a very important event awaited by a lot of Egyptians. During the conference, we always discuss the most important files and topics. And during the two previous sessions, we have followed two important topics. One is fighting terrorism at both regional and international levels, and also the second session under the title Dissemination of Rumors and Spreading Frustration on Social Media. And since I'm working in media, I was surprised by the level of fabrications. Now, even videos can be fabricated, and this, of course, raises a lot of questions regarding the fake news, and we can see this in most of the questions raised by people about the credible sources of information. Thank you once more, Your Excellency the President, for being keen on holding this session. Ask the President. This session started in Ismailia Youth Conference in April 2017, and since then, this session has been there in all youth conference, and this is the 7th edition of this session. Ask the President. At the beginning of the session, let me, Your Excellency, review with the President the statistics and the questions received this time. Over 4 days, we received a large volume of questions on askthepresident.com website. The number of questions received by the organizing committee over 4 days reached 435,000 questions, and this reflects the confidence of the citizens in this mechanism and using it to pose their questions directly to the President. As for the percentages, we'll start with the governorates. The top-ranked governorate is Cairo, 23%. Next, Alexandria Governorate with 11%. Then Giza Governorate, 9%. Next, Sharqiya Governorate, 7%. And we can see that the highest participation percentages coming from the governorate that has the largest number of internet users. Border governorates like Marsa Matruh, New Valley, North Sinai, and South Sinai had lowest participation, and it was about 1%. As for the questions, most of the questions raised by the citizens focus on 4 main dimensions: political, economic, security, and social. The social has the biggest number of questions with 47%. Next, the economic, the questions on economy are about 28% of the questions received, and then the political questions are about 17%, and then the security questions were about 8% of the questions raised. As for the percentage of participation according to the gender, men participation was 77%, and women participation is 23%. Concerning percentages of participation regarding age groups, the age group from 16 till 23, the percentage of participation is 17%. Next, the age group from 24 till 34 years, 23%. The highest percentage of participation was from 31 to 39 years. The participation was about 32%. Next, the age group from 40 to 50 number of questions, 41%. The lowest participation is for those who are above the age of 50. And their percentage is only 9%. As for the professions, the private sector has the highest percentage of participation, and then the students, 17%. Next, public works field, 23%. Next, working in the public sector, they were ranked fourth with 12.5%. The fifth rank for the jobless people, and the participation was 9% on their part. As for people work, the scientific researchers and the academia and people on pension, their participation was only 3.5%. I would like to say that Ask the President session is not just a session during which the organizing committee receives questions, but according to these statistics, we can say that this is a sample through which we are able to consider it as an indicator of the general public opinion. The next percentages we will show are very important. These are the sources of information and news for the citizens. The main source of information was social media. 48% of the citizens take their information from social networks, and that's why it was so important to hold the second session talking about rumors and how can we check the information we receive on these social platforms. After social media, next comes the TV channels, 25.4%. Next, the news agencies, 25%, and then newspapers, 4.5%, and finally radio, 1.9%. Last but not least, and in order to give more opportunity to more citizens to participate and ask questions and to reflect the impression of the Egyptian street that might differ from the users of internet in general and social media in particular, we can say that in the streets people have different opinions than the questions that we receive on askthepresident.com, and the organizing committee was keen on expanding the basis of participation, so they talk to the people in the streets to receive their questions they want to ask the president.
اسأل الرئيس.
I've already dreamt of having this opportunity to talk to the president and ask him a question. Since I have this opportunity right now, I have a suggestion. Why education want to be totally practical? I would like to ask the president one question. What is the effect of the Sudanese revolution and the agreement they signed in Sudan on the water Egypt would receive? I have a question. Are there strategic plans and mechanisms set to deal with cyber attacks and the cyber war? Your Excellency, the President, my suggestion to you is to not focus on the negative things. I think that the youth should be given a bigger opportunity in the parliamentarian elections. I have a question. I wish that the president would make sports an essential part of education. I would like to ask the president about the representation of the youth in the next localities. There was a youth conference that was held, and I think that is another that is going to be held during October. So they are raising the awareness of the youth to participate in the local authorities. I have a question. Would we be ranked first in education? We all love Egypt, and long live Egypt, long live Egypt, long live Egypt. Your Excellency, the President, let's start raising the questions. I took the questions of the citizens and I've divided them according to the different topics. Let's start with education. The first education from Mr. Abdurrahman Abdussalam from Manufaya Governorate. He's asking, do you see that using the tablet in education would be a fruitful step? The second question from Ms. Dina Abdel Alim from Al Bahira Governorate. She's asking, after 1 year from launching the education strategy, how do you evaluate the current outcomes? The next question on education is from Mr. Mahmoud Abdelaziz from Aswan Governorate. Your Excellency the President, thanks for developing education and introducing new interactive methods like the interactive board and the tab, but there are other aspects of the educational process that needs development, like the educational institution itself, the school, the classroom. The student also needs his mindset to be changed, and finally the teacher, who is the cornerstone of the educational process. So I wish that you would reconsider it, because the teacher is capable of developing education and he needs the motivation and the incentives to do it. Okay. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate, let me extend thanks and appreciation to you all. It has been a long day and we talked a lot, but I would like to remind you to answer these questions that we have been through different phases over the past 6 years. The first phase was stabilizing the institutions in Egypt and stabilizing the state, because the state was facing a lot of challenges. So this was our main priority, to stabilize it and strengthen it. While doing this, we were also trying to link this to the other phases. So we did not neglect totally the other phases. We tried to incorporate all the other phases, trying to make each phase interact with the other phases. The next phase was construction and development. The third phase was focusing on the human being, be it through education or health services or administrative reform. So this is the whole story. And as I said, when we started doing this, were they all separated from each other? No, all these phases were interlinked, but we were focusing mainly on one phase, and then the other phases would be introduced smoothly. What about education? I will give a number of figures and data to remind myself and remind you of education and its status in Egypt. We have 23 million students. 23 million students. We have more than 50,000 schools. We have about 1.7 million, out of which 1.3 million teachers. So, what is the education budget? It's a figure that we should never forget. And I'm saying we should never forget because, as you heard throughout the day, that so long as we are going to talk about the public affairs, then we need all to be aware of that. We're talking about 130 billion Egyptian pounds as education budget. 80% of this figure, then 100 billion almost, are salaries and wages. The rest of the amount is for operational purposes. For long years, we've been mentioning that we need to give due concern to education. This is true. Any project is an easy project because we're talking about one element, one part. If you want to build a building, it's easy because the only challenge we will face then is the procedures, the permits, and the licenses. But if we're talking about education, then it is more complicated because it is a process between us and the public opinion. So the public opinion need to be ready for the change and to accept the path we will select. Next, they would assist us also. We won't be able to say that we can succeed on our own because it is not separated from the Egyptian people. And if we're talking about 23 million students, then we're talking about 23 million families. So we're talking about millions of families. And this is the first challenge, to convince these millions of families. Can we as a community, and I said this before, can we accept this change? Are we ready as a community to cooperate to make this experience a success? Do you believe that we have studied this thoroughly and exerted a lot of efforts at both the local and international levels to decide upon the path we would select for the education reform? I tried not to talk about strategies or say complex and complicated things that not all people would understand. So it is not a matter of a tablet and whether it would be successful or not. The tablet is just one element of educational reform. This is a whole integrated process. So is the community ready? If it is ready, would it cooperate with us to make us successful? Because we, on our own as a state, won't be successful. If we would all say we are worried about children, of course, your fear is just and it is justified, but they are your children and ours. So we want to make a kind of reform that would waste the lives of people. So we have studied this thoroughly and developed a process to do the reform. There was a question asking me whether I'm satisfied with what's going on or not. We have done nothing up till now. We can see the outcomes and the outputs of the education reform after at least 12 years, 6 in primary education, 3 preparatory, and 3 secondary, until we are able to see the results we aspire to. But is the current path better or worse? Of course, it's better because the current status is so difficult and so bad. Building the human character is not done also through education. Education is just a part. The school, the mosque, the church, the media, the community are the other elements. So you cannot say that the school can do everything. It would never be able to do it, because if the school is building the personality and someone else is destroying it, then all your efforts are in vain. But when the whole community is working together to achieve one objective, that the Egyptian personality would be a balanced one, then the results would be good. Again, to talk about developing an Egyptian character, we're talking about education, which is only one part. Media is another. The mosque and the church or the worshipping houses is the third part. The family is the fourth. The role of the family in supporting and building the personalities of their children. So in brief, without delving into details, let's talk about incentives for the teacher. What you're saying is true, but when we're talking about 1.3 million. I said this before and I'm reiterating it. The better our economic capabilities are, the more we would be able to improve the salaries and the conditions of all citizens, and not just the teachers. And on top of them, of course, would be the teachers, because they play a very sacred role. And figures show this. If you see that the teacher needs a suitable salary, so if we're talking about 1.3 million, or if we want to raise the salary of each teacher by 1,000 Egyptian pounds, then we're talking about 1.2 billion Egyptian pounds annually. So it is in total 13 or 14 billion. The better our conditions are, the better the salaries would be. And this happened before. We have pumped more financial resources in education. We should not forget that every year we have more number of students. Due to overpopulation, the number of students increase. So the demand on new schools increases. The demand on new teachers increases. The demand on different components of the educational process increases. I don't know whether Dr. Tariq is here or not. I would like to say that we are in a continuous dialogue as a government, and the Minister of Education is always worried about the comments of people saying that he is going to destroy the education for their children. And this would never happen. I do not know whether I can say this or not, but I will say it. Real education would build a personality that cannot be controlled by the modern tools and methods. And we really need this. If you fear for the future of your country, then all the students should be capable of having a critical mind, a mind capable of objectively and logically discussing anything. Good education would achieve this, but our current education is only in one direction. You listen to the lecture and nothing happens. So we cannot go on as such. We need to change things. When we held tests and exams through specialists, I think that any father, of course, wants his children to be better than himself. And I want to see my children better than myself. I mean by the sons and daughters of Egypt. I want to see them better than us. Yet, the way the education was taking place, we would have never been able to achieve this. And I think now that we are trying to organize everything now. In the past, we used just to move from one grade to the other, be graduated from school, go to university. After this, you get graduated from university, find a job opportunity, get married, have a family. If this is our only objective, then the state won't develop, because for a community to move forward, we need a larger percentage of people who would excel in their professions. There is a difference between having a general context for building a personality or having just elements of 1% or less than 1% of the community who are capable of pushing this community forward. Over the past 50 or 60 years, we had just an education that make the ambition of people very limited. They just want to find a job opportunity, have a family, without thinking of postgraduate studies or developing my skills. My role is just to be graduated from university. And this is not the case in other countries. So the path we are adopting right now aims at reshaping the Egyptian personality so that they would be able to do that. We talked about the exams. We're doing the exams and looking at the results. We are not the ones who did these exams. We brought specialists who can conduct these exams. So when we did the exams, the results were disappointing. I won't be able to mention them in order not to cause a problem. The results were not good. And this is a very nice expression to see that they were not good. So is it something inevitable? Yes. The educational reform was inevitable. But we are facing some challenges. The community itself that has inherited for years this educational system cannot accept the change easily and smoothly. It is not easy to change this for vocational and technical education. We need to recognize that it is very important. We cannot expect that we will go on having tens of thousands in the Faculty of Arts and they all get graduated and cannot find job opportunities. A father or a mother, why are you doing this to your son? So long as you know that he will get graduated and won't find an opportunity in the labor market. You just want him to have a certificate to say that my son is a graduate of the Faculty of Arts. What about the jobs? Technical education is not just limited to schools. Even technological universities, applied universities are under construction now. So we are working on this aspect. So I'm saying that the success of this education reform does not depend on the government and its program only. It depends on both the government and the community, the mothers and the fathers. And I said that this when we launched the reform program. I said before that the Knowledge Bank was established in 2016. We launched it in 2016. And we've spent a lump sum on establishing this knowledge bank to give the opportunity to everyone in Egypt to use it. You are talking about social networks and social media, and that they are used to destroy the country, and people consider them to be the source of information. In Knowledge Bank, we have put all information for anyone who would log on it using his mobile phone. You would find all the information, all the knowledge you need. If you want to make your children learn something and give them the opportunity to watch something for children in different languages, you will find it in the Knowledge Bank. We would not save any efforts or money. Nobody has done this in the world before. This used to be done in research centers and in universities only. Each university would pay 2 or 3 million euros or dollars and receive in return a terminal to be used for the knowledge bank. We have made it accessible to everyone in Egypt. It was launched in 2016, so I'm asking a question. Who used it? Who knows about it? And if he knows about it, who reads and tries to make their children benefit from it? I do not think that many do so. Although I say let's make a commercial in television to talk about the volume of knowledge available in this bank. All the information are for kindergarten children up till postgraduate students. Am I satisfied? I'm satisfied with the idea and I encourage it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been launched because the decision is not taken from a superior position. I don't know whether you recognize this or not. You see us always in meetings with the cabinet because this is a continuous discussion on different topics to make sure that each topic took the fair share of the discussion before launching it. And Dr. Tariq was talking to the education group since 2014. And studies took a lot of time. And I said that this once or twice. He did not want to be the Minister of Education until I embarrassed him in front of you in a conference, and he accepted the post. And we launched then this project. It's an ambitious one, but its success does not depend on the state only, but the state and the families. Do not be concerned about your children. I'm talking to all Egyptians here. We will develop the future of your children. I wanted to explain the issue about the exams. Then I found that it is not suitable to talk about it right now. But the exam showed that we as the state want to provide better education for the next generations. And over different phases, in the end, we would be able to solve the problem. I want to talk about university education. I would just like to say that we are now automating exams. We have finished the automation of the exams in the Faculty of Medicine because we want to neutralize the human element in assessing and evaluating the performance of medicine students. And we will apply this also for all other exams afterwards. So we're talking about automation and that it would solve a problem and it would neutralize the human element in this. Also, the new generation of universities we will inaugurate. I'm talking about private universities that we insisted on making them have twinning projects with other universities in the world so that the certificate given would be accredited by the foreign university besides the Egyptian one. And this would help with the documentation and the accreditation of the certificate. So the education process then would be reformed and the exams would be done correctly. I did not give a lengthy answer. I tried just to cover different parts of these questions because this is a very important topic. This is for private universities. What about public universities? We are also developing them, and starting next year, we could have inaugurated partially King Salman's University, El Galala University, the Egyptian-Japanese University, as we did with Zuwail University. But we said no. In each university, we'll have 13 or 14 faculties, so let's inaugurate them all together, and by this, we would have completed the construction of these universities. So for elementary education and for university education, we are working on developing them. So I think that the opportunity to success is a very big one, and we did not do this apart from the community. We took the public opinion, but the real success would be attained when you join us and cooperate with us, and this would be for the interest of the sons and daughters of Egypt. Your Excellency the President, we have 3 other questions related to this file education. One of the participants said, why wouldn't education would be totally practical and why sports want to be part of education. I cannot imagine education that is totally practical, but we can have a big part for practical education. We will try to strike a balance between theoretical and practical education. For sports, I said this 2 years ago that we want to focus on sports and have scores and grades for sports in evaluating the students' performance. And the students said, we fear that in light of lacking real mechanisms to enable us to do this evaluation, it would be very difficult, because you said that you will give the student a certain score. This means that we will test them. So we decided to postpone the idea until schools and the community is ready. I would like to tell you also that if you would see our bodies as young people, as students, you would find that we lack fitness. So these are not the bodies of youth. And I thought that we can solve this problem by including sports as part of the assessment of the educational performance. I said this before, that the father or the mother would take the son or the daughter for a walk or to do sports. Sports even can be done at home. You do not need to go to a gym club. You can do even sports and some exercises at home, but you need only to be ready to do it and willing. So right now we want to be able to include sports as part of the educational performance assessment. We cannot do this right now. During the last conference held in the administrative capital, when you talked about the sports activities in schools and universities, you said that sometimes it's easy to say things, but the implementation mechanisms are sometimes a challenge. The last question, would we be ranked first in the world in education? This is my hope. It's easy to be said. Let's look at our sports teams. They did it not with wishes, but with effort, persistence also. So I wish that we would be able to see at a suitable position with all the efforts we are doing right now. I'm confident that thanks to God we will be able to do it, and you will see that in the near future the universities would be totally different. I'm talking about 22 universities: Al Mansoura University, Al Alamein University, Al Galala University, King Salman University, the Egyptian Japanese University, Zuwail University. These are all universities that have different elements to success. And it would be even better with twinning with other universities to improve our educational process. Your Excellency, the President, will move on to another topic, the regional issues. We've received a number of questions. The first question from Mr. Mohammed Fawzi Abdel Azim from Giza Governorate. He said, the map of terrorist organizations differ from time to the other, and they move from one hotspot to the other. How does this affect the Egyptian national security? The second question, from Miss Noura Ahmed Khalil from Qina Governorate. The Middle East is a hot spot and it has been so for a long period. So how do you see the Egyptian position here and the world struggle to control the Middle East, and how does this reflect on the Egyptian national security? I will add to this another question. There was a citizen individual who asked about the Sudanese events and how does this influence the water we receive from the Nile basin. I will give a general answer to any challenge, be it terrorism or any other challenge. Struggle over interests or whatever it is. I'm saying this to you, and I wish that our thinkers and intellects will talk about this. The stability and the coherence of the state of Egypt is the only means to confront any probable challenge. There is no state in the world that would not have to face any challenges. Even the superpowers have their own challenges and they face struggles to secure the interests of these countries. This applies even to advanced countries. So this is part of what we need to think of. There is no absolute stability. So this means that we as a state and as a region would always go through challenges. Why do we say that terrorism is a very dangerous issue? Because through limited financial resources and with no international liability, they can do it. There are intelligence services that can make use of these terrorist elements to launch a terrorist attack in the targeted state. And in the morning session we talked about this and we said that these are used as tools to achieve political objectives. The idea is very attractive. I can pressurize a country like Egypt with 100 million Egyptians through a number of terrorist attacks, and when you find one terrorist attack or 2 or 3 successive ones, what is our impression as Egyptians? And this is normal, so that you won't think that I'm saying that our impression is abnormal. No, it's normal. So imagine if they would broaden the region of the attacks and the state is incapable of confronting it, what would be the impact? When I say that we need internal immunity, and I'm talking here about terrorism and terrorist groups, we're talking about 250,000, so it's enough to have 1,000. Why? Because these are people who are dressed exactly like ourselves and they live amongst us. Their method is the only different thing. It depends on concealment. So they do not use direct confrontation. As we said, we have 250,000. And even those in Syria, they are very close to us. And I said this 5 years ago. The foreign fighters in Syria and Iraq, after the end of their mission, where would they go? And the people then were worried about this question. We have seen this before in Afghanistan. Where did they go? They either stayed in Afghanistan or came to our countries. So now all countries in the world are aware of this danger. These countries have the laws, the media, and they can legitimize any procedure they undertake. So what remains is the countries in our region. Sudan, Libya, even in the north, in the west, Libya, or in the south. The volume is increasing, the number of terrorist attacks increase, and the countries targeted in Africa increase, and as we said today, 18% increase. So what's the problem? The problem is that we as Egyptians need to be united. Who would pay for the other things? It's the army and the police. They would receive the attack and they would sacrifice their lives for our security. Who are they? They are the sons of Egypt. They are the sons of every Egyptian family, a mother or a father who give their son to Egypt. So Egypt is protecting itself with its people. But the immunity of the state of Egypt is very important. Let's stop at this point. Let's remember the past 10 days. The past 10 days. And see, some people say we are confident. You were the ones who used to share this. Would I repeat it? It's you who shared all this. I'm not blaming you, I'm just talking. I need to get my right back. Would the son of Egypt who on the 3rd of July stood up, sacrificed himself, and the army, his sons and maybe his grandsons, would you do this to him? May God protect you and protect them. Let me speak. Anyways, I said this not to talk about myself, but refer to Egypt. You are afraid of terrorism, terrorist organizations. You have all right to be worried about this. You are afraid of any other problems. Yes, you have full right. But you are the safety key to Egypt and its people. Don't let anybody confuse you. And I said something very important. Would I have to say that there are invoices and bills for my food? I did it for you. So terrorism is a challenge that we will keep facing for long years, but so long as the people of Egypt are united, we will be able to overcome it. Do you want the army and the police to sacrifice themselves? And the soldiers and police officers then would be accused? All what happened in the past was very difficult. It was really difficult. But we are not shaken. We will never be shaken. Why? Because we are supported by God. corrupt people won't be supported by God, but those reformists would be supported by God. So we are not worried about this. I just wanted to say to those who asked the question, we do not want to keep asking the questions and talking about this. I said this hundreds of times before. I talked about the unity, the coherence with the media, the judiciary, the army, the police. So you are destroying who? You are destroying yourself. You are weakening an institution, and by weakening it, you are weakening yourself. Egypt is the sum of its institutions, the judiciary, the constitution, the education, the army, the police, the presidency. The stronger they are, the stronger the country is. So they won't stop. And Dr. Mukhtar is here with us. Also, the religious people and the people of the religion do not identify the problem. People of religion do not recognize the problem. They do not see that there is a problem in our understanding of religion, and that we are 6 or 7 centuries backwards. And I said before that we won't change the noon prayer and make it 2 instead of 4, but there are other concepts. What is the opinion of religion in those who disseminate rumors and fake news? And we know that it is enough to be a liar, to say everything you heard. It is enough to be considered as a liar if you would only say everything you heard. You are only saying everything you heard. You are not lying. You heard something, so you are saying. This is the new points that you need to discuss when you talk about the development of community, technology, culture, arts. When someone would go to a bridge and put it under his control and construct a mosque, thinking that he's doing something good, what about those who are building on agricultural lands? What about those who threw litter in the streets? I'm not trying to insult anybody, but if we would not confront this intellectually, then we will keep on having this bleeding wound without stopping it. We'll keep bleeding, and false information and the news would go on wishing that they would establish the ideal state, the Muslim state. And the state of good governance. The state of good governance does not only need religion, because religion is just part of the life. There are other parts. So if we are worried about terrorism and terrorist groups, I would like to say that first, we as a community need to be united, very strong, not fragile. And our strategic goal should be that the rest would be easy. We would be able, through our capabilities, to confront all these challenges. And then the point I've mentioned 5 years ago, to rectify the religious discourse. This reform won't be done except if we all have the conviction, the will, and move towards the change. The conviction, the will, and moving towards the change. You talked about our region, the Middle East. It's the fate of our region, the Middle East region, the very important region at the heart of the old and the new world, and Egypt is in the heart of the heart. So it's fate to have a geopolitical importance due to its wealths. You can see the volume of oil that was extracted over the past years and would be extracted over the next years. So, this is